There we go. That's Jewel with an interesting take on a Christmas classic, or a holiday classic, a winter classic. Tim, thank you for coming back again.
Only 1 week till the big day now.
1 week until the big day. Or week-ish, depending when we get this show posted.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we got a few more interesting things to talk about. Are you in the same vein that everybody else in Lafka is, where you just kind of want to go work on an Amish farm for the next month and a half and not be around anything that plugs into the wall?
Well, what I definitely don't want to do is watch a movie.
Oh my gosh,
sure.
It's unbelievable.
I think you have the misfortune of being on our show.
I am. Well, here's the good thing. Yes, I am on Film Week on Wednesday the 23rd. We're going to doing it live, and talking about Christmas movies. But the nice thing is, I've already seen everything that we're talking about. I had to see. I had to see it for voting.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. So it's the Hateful Eight and Joy. And the Will Ferrell film "Daddy's Home," which I didn't see for voting, but I did see last week. So it's all. The Revenant.
The Revenant,
which is weird because I'm like, The Revenant only opens on Christmas. I feel like I saw that a year ago. It feels like so long ago.
Well, we get overwhelmed by all of those screeners and movies and everything for about 2 weeks.
It is
in particular,
it is
much longer actually.
It is intense.
First screener we got was in October.
Yeah, we talked about that last week, Grandma.
So it's been a while.
Yeah, the unfortunate thing is, and I wish more distributors understood this, is that we only have so much time. It's easy to think that we're going to prioritize their screeners, but you know what? I mean, I don't think a lot of people in the group saw Trumbo, for instance, because that came so late. It arrived so late in the cycle. It was like a few days before we voted, at which point people are just burned out and they don't want to see anything else anymore, and they've made up their minds. And I wish, IFC doesn't even send out screeners anymore. They just send you a bunch of links. Here's all our films. Here are the Vimeo links. Go dig them up yourself.
And then a reminder that you have that link every now and again.
Yeah. And then Magnolia basically just burns a generic DVD of every single one of their films, and they wrap some twine around it
and put it carry a pigeon
and put it in a brown paper bag, and they throw it at you. And then they say, "Here, find something." It's like they don't even care. So it's it would help if they sort of cull these things out for you. I like the presentation. I like it when I see that they put the effort into the packaging and all of that stuff. But,
You don't have to send me the script, although they do.
Yeah, which is weird. Do we ever read the script?
No, and I have like a large collection of these things now. But you know what's odd is that I will admit that there was a time in my career as a film writer that I would have loved that.
Yeah.
I would have loved having the actual script for some of the movies 25, 30 years ago. But at this point in history, that's okay. Yeah, that's all righty.
I'll tell you. Well, anyway, going to start off by going through some British television so that when I come back with Mark, he doesn't beat me up about any of this stuff. From Image, Restless, which is a super, super cool spy thriller set during World War II, originally aired on the BBC, released by Acorn. I'll tell you, I'll tell you why I'm partial to this, because I just love the people in the cast. First of all, one of the cast members is Charlotte Rampling, who LAFCA gave their Best Actress award to for 45 years. Yeah. Did you see that coming, by the way?
I did not see that coming at all.
Neither did I.
Yeah.
That was the weirdest thing in the room. Kate Blanchett, totally on board. Alicia Vikander, totally saw that she'd kind of be
in a couple of different places, frankly.
And there were there were other actresses that were sort of in the mix, and then suddenly Charlotte Rampling, 3 points, Charlotte Rampling, 3, Charlotte Rampling. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, I mean, I love Charlotte Rampling, but I didn't think anybody saw the movie.
Yeah, it was a neat movie, and but not a great movie, although an excellent performance.
She and Tom Courtenay, terrific.
Outstanding. But, Lady in the Van, the Dame was my... Anyway, go on.
Well, anyway, Rufus Sewell, another actor I absolutely adore. Never thought he really got the big shot that he should have had, but he's still in the mix, and he is a great actor. And then, of course, Michelle Dockery from Downton Abbey, Michael Gambon, who can do no wrong, and, of course, the lovely Haley Atwell, who just anchors this thing beautifully. Great World War II spy thriller, almost too good for television, and it is based on a novel, allegedly, that I have not read, but still really, really nicely done. So that is pretty spectacular. And then also we've got a Place to Call Home seasons 1 and 2. This is also from Acorn. And we include this with British television because Acorn is primarily British television releases, but this is set in Australia. So it's 1950s family drama in Australia. I wouldn't call it Downton Abbey-ish. It's sort of more Dallas and Dynasty-ish, but it is really, really good. The acting is terrific, and if you haven't seen it, it's kind of addictive in a sick, twisted way. 13 episodes on season 1 and 10 episodes on season 2. Which makes for about a single season for a United States American Hollywood network show. And really, 1950s Australia, kind of a fascinating time.
Yeah, that sort of like post-war period. Something that we get.
Not something that we get, and also very much, we forget that other nations have had their own very unique kind of civil rights struggles, and the 50s in Australia was a big one.
Yeah.
The
really, Aboriginals and all of that. Yeah.
So that's really good. If you are a fan of Doc Martin, as many people are, six early seasons plus the movies. This is the complete series 1 through 4 on the first package, series 5 and 6 and the movies on the second one, all in one box. Martin Clunes, great actor, another one of those great British actors who just never leaves television because I guess that's where his bread is buttered. But man, he's good.
The Doctor Who fans will know Martin Clunes goes way back. He was in 1 or 2 Doctor Who's, like in the 70s. I think he was during the Tom Baker period. On Doctor Who. Love Martin Clunes.
Fantastic surgeon who's working in this little tiny town of Port Wen. And it's just the relationship of a guy who's a general practitioner and some unusual people. It's got it's better than stuff like Northern Exposure by far. I mean, this is just better surroundings, better location, more interesting people, and a great actor.
Never so slightly more sincere, not quite as metaphysical.
Yeah. And then from the Athena line of Acorn, The Story of Women in Power. This is a really extraordinary documentary written and presented by Amanda Vickery, which comes at an interesting time. There's a film that was sort of in the awards mix for a moment, Suffragette, which I didn't particularly care for, but a lot of people have liked it, so it may wind up with an Oscar nomination or two. But it kind of goes into a similar area. This is much more broad, sort of feminist equality history, but it certainly touches on suffrage and all those things, and especially gets into Nancy Astor, who was the first female MP, and a lot of really sort of the interesting history of women's rights in the UK. Really a really solid documentary by a really good scholar. So, The Story of Women and Power. The rest of these here. The Ken Stott collection of Rebus, which is based on these crime thrillers by a novelist named Ian Rankin. So many novelists in the UK, they never get over here. This is from Image as well. And I can't say that I'm really a huge fan of Rebus. Ken Stott's a good actor, but this feels very... I don't know. It feels kind of familiar in a lot of respects. It's really gritty. It takes place in Edinburgh, and it's solid crime stuff, just not remarkable. Let's see. As long as we're on Martin Clunes and raving about what a great actor he is, he also stars in Arthur and George, which is a very interesting. This is an interesting idea here.
Arthur Conan Doyle,
yes,
the actual Arthur Conan Doyle, and his work while he was writing the Sherlock Holmes series. And he got involved in an actual case, to prove that an actual young man was not guilty of a crime that he had been accused of. It's a fun little PBS series that I quite enjoyed.
With Charles Edwards, who's an equally amazing actor in this. It's pretty solid, and Martin Clunes, I wish he'd do a feature or two.
What's neat about it is that he's not playing Sherlock Holmes. He's playing Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, but he's doing what Sherlock Holmes does, which is unravel a mystery, and applying a lot of Sherlock's skills as he does so. But he's not actually playing Sherlock Holmes. Clever idea, very clever.
Very clever idea. DCI Banks, Season 3. This is an ongoing, really, really good procedural, and better than probably most Hollywood procedurals, I think. So, interesting relationships, good actors. The Widower. This is on Blu-ray. This is with Reese Shearsmith, Sheridan Smith, Archie Punjabi, and John Hannah, the wonderful John Hannah, who just keeps getting better and better, but never shows up in anything stateside these days. This is actually about a guy who's lost his wife and is so emotionally racked by it that it winds up. This is set in New Zealand, by the way, so this is another one that's kind of empire, but off the beaten path. Anyway. How do I even say this without spilling the beans? Well, let's say he's lost his wife, trying to rebuild his life, and in the process winds up falling into a bit of an intrigue that is not what he bargained for, and certainly not what he wanted. In any case, The Widower, Reese Shearsmith, really, really good. And The Great Fire. Which is an interesting period film based around the event in 1666 when a bakery in London caught fire and essentially almost burned down the entire city of London. 1666. Who knew, right?
Yeah. Kind of like that cow in Chicago back in
Yes, exactly. Anyway, production value is solid. You can tell they're working with a limited budget. You don't ever they don't burn down London, in other words. They don't. But they recreate it pretty darn well. That's for sure. And then the last few here, real quickly. As long as we've talked about Foyle's War last week.
Yes. Outstanding.
Well, if you don't want to have to get the whole Foyle's War, there is set 8 that is available individually with Michael Kitchen. So if you've been collecting them individually and you're like, oh, that stupid box set, well, you can still get.
If I'm not mistaken, that box set went through Series 7. If I'm not mistaken, so this picks up where that leaves off.
There we go.
I think it is.
Well, there we go.
Yeah.
God, so add this to the mix. Then this includes 3 mysteries: High Castle, Trespass, and Elise. Pretty great. Michael Kitchen, another one like Clunes that Tim and I are big fans of, and Mark fails to appreciate. And then Peaky Blinders with Cillian Murphy and Sam Neill. This is a crime drama, basically dealing with arms dealers in the city of Birmingham, and it's kind of a gangster mob thing, but it's Cillian Murphy has that creepy face. It's not quite right.
Yes. And the British series Death in Paradise, which is set in the Caribbean. I like the series. Aside from having really neat little detective stories that they work
good through cast, really good cast,
decent good cast. This is season 3. One of the things that this series managed to do is it managed to pull off switching main characters between season 2 and season 3. They actually do an interesting thing at the end of season 2, so that when we start season 3, there's a new lead in Death in Paradise, and the show rolls on very, very well. It's actually a pretty good undertaking.
And then the last one, British TV, is a thing called Britain's Best Canal Journeys. I know you're thinking, oh, great, yay, yippee. No, there are actually canals all over England, and this guy John Sargent, I guess he's somebody who's important, but he just takes you on a tour of all these amazing, cool little places in the UK, and it's wonderful. I had no idea. You always think, well, I'm going to go to London and Edinburgh and go home. That's sort of that's sort of what most people do. They don't realize it's a big frickin' island with a lot of stuff on it, and it's really cool. And like Leeds and Liverpool and Kennet and Birmingham and a lot of these places. There's a lot of really fun little off the beaten path places. So if you're a travel junkie, you'll just be amazed how cool this is. A lot of fun. Dorset. Yeah, a lot of great places.
Outstanding. Does that finish out our little tour of the UK?
The UK. So let's get into this giant monster of things that we got in front of you.
We have a stack of really interesting movies here, though, including this first one that I have: Viggo Mortensen and Reb Kateb in this movie called Far From Men. This was an outstanding film.
He's been doing because he is fluent in Spanish.
Yes.
Viggo Mortensen is fluent in Spanish, so a lot of people don't realize has hit his artistic stride here. He figures, I've got a pile of money from the Lord of the Rings movies. The royalties will essentially keep me in the lap of luxury for the remainder of my days. So now I'm going to go make some real artistic movies where I get to actually be an actor. Unfortunately, I have to do it in Spanish because the opportunities are not there in English.
It's
so
far and few between.
He's been going to Argentina and elsewhere south of the border to make some really interesting movies.
This is outstanding. Set in 1954 during the Algerian War. He's a farmer, an expatriate, and he's being forced to take a prisoner to a camp. It's something that he does not want to do. And as he does this, he learns this man's story. And it's just another one. Thebes was another great one. Timbuktu was another outstanding one.
Zhao is another one that he was in entirely in Spanish, Argentine film.
This is that's from Kino Lorber.
That's from Kino Lorber, and really quite a fascinating film. This is we should say this is in French, Arabic, and Spanish. So there's a lot of multilingualism going on here, but I applaud him for doing these films. I think they're absolutely great. Good for Vigo.
Recently released. This was an interesting film. I had a chance to talk about this on Film Week on the radio program. The Girl King, from Mika Kaurismäki. An interesting story about Queen Christina, the Swedish queen, whom we all know, beginning with her young life as a 6-year-old girl. This is a girl whose crazy mother kept her dead father, King Gustav, lying in state for 2 years.
That is insane.
And would make her kiss her dead father's rotting face every day.
Oh, that's so sick and
for
twisted.
2 years. It was very, very twisted. Of course, one of the interesting things about Queen Christina, which we all know, of course, is that she was gay.
Yeah.
This is the least interesting thing about Queen Christina, as it turns out. This was an extremely sophisticated young woman, very good friends with Descartes. All kinds of turmoil over whether she would go with Luther. I mean, Swedish Protestant country, Luther, but she was born a Catholic,
right?
And they made her convert, which is not something that she wanted to do. Later, she had another epiphany and converted yet again. She led her country to freedom and to settle several wars that they were involved in. By the time she was 22 years old, she sued for peace by waging war and won both. She was an outstanding and very interesting human being. This film gets to a lot of that stuff. Interesting sort of production. Not a lot on this disc here. Actually, no bonus features whatsoever. If you're a fan of this particular history of Europe, I would say check it out. The Girl King, Mika Kaurismäki.
Very cool. I want to make mention of a few documentaries really quickly, and I forgot. There is one more British title that I didn't make mention of. This is also from Athena, the documentary line of Acorns, Empire, The Complex Legacy of Britain's Imperial History. There are a lot of British history docs out there and compilation docs, and I love almost all of them. But this is, most of them are really, really long. And this is not as long as most, but it's 6 hours still. This is one of the short ones. This is the abridged version. They're all very long because England has a very long and varied history. Anyway, this is actually quite an interesting and thorough look at essentially the modern or relatively modern empire, and it's basically from Queen Victoria forward. So it's just about the last 150, 140 some years, which is really extraordinary how that shaped the world. And the host of this thing, Jeremy Paxman, who is very well known on the BBC, he really, really gives it the treatment that it deserves and makes it very accessible and goes everywhere and talks to everyone. It's a wonderful backdrop. So for British history buffs, Empire. And then,
did they explain how in that one? I wonder if they explain how that German family.
Oh yeah.
became
king
British,
and queen. Yeah,
change that last name. All you have to do is change your last name.
That's all you need to do.
It takes Windsor.
Amy is the amazing documentary by an extraordinary filmmaker that I'm a huge fan of, Asif Kapadia, who is a British filmmaker, made a film called The Warrior some years ago, which I'm a huge fan of. And then, of course, he did Senna, the Ayrton Senna documentary about Senna, the race car driver. And he has followed that up with another amazing documentary on Amy Winehouse, which won our documentary award with LAFCA.
Yeah.
And it is a fine film. It is a sad film. This is on Blu-ray and Ultraviolet from Lionsgate. It's a really good doc, but it's really hard to watch.
It's tough to watch. Amy Winehouse, of course, who joined that club. I think they call it the 27 Club. Not too terribly long ago, sadly. And I got to tell you, during the period of time when Amy was on the scene, Amy Winehouse was a performer whom I appreciated more than actually liked. Now, this is because I'm of a certain age, and most of the music that Amy Winehouse was doing was music that I either literally knew because she was doing covers or understood as music from my youth. And I dug all that music the first time I heard it, so I didn't pay as much attention to it when it was actually happening.
Yeah,
I see this film, and I see this young lady, and I see how her world, anyway, just sort of totally and completely let her down.
Yeah,
her father let her down. Her mother let her down.
Everybody,
every man she ever met let her down, and it generated a great deal of empathy. For Amy Winehouse.
Well, it's got a great commentary with Asif Kapadia, along with all of a lot of his production team, and some additional performances not included in the film, never before seen.
And most of her hits are in the movie.
And then another doc. I'll turn it back over to Tim here in a second. The Hunting Ground, which I'm partial to. Our friend. When we made Schlock, which you were involved in as well, for Ray Green, a very dear friend of Ray Green's, is one of the editors on this film, Doug Blush, who does an amazing job. So we're always partial to work that Doug does. And The Hunting Ground is a Kirby Dick film. Kirby Dick, of course, who's done many fine documentaries, including This Film Is Not Yet Rated. The Hunting Ground is essentially about the rape epidemic on American campuses, and it's
controversial film.
Very controversial because a lot of people contend that these statistics are doctored or faked or aren't representative, or they chose the wrong universities, and there's not really as much rape on American universities as the statistics suggest.
Yeah.
Whether or not that is the truth, my feeling on this, as the father of a daughter who will be in a university someday, is if there is any rape on American campuses, it's too much.
And worthy of a documentary. The thing that is true is that the testimonials of all of the young women who appear in this film are true and profound and shattering. The numbers, it seems to me, doesn't really make any difference. This is a problem. Like the previous film, The Invisible War, which is about the epidemic of rape in the military services. So the exact numbers notwithstanding, a very important film.
And this is again in the news actually because there was an attempt to, and I should have put this into my notes, but the current NFL star, he was number one draft pick just last year while the film was being released, is accused of rape in the film, and he is still he tried to stop the film with legal action, and this is still very much in the news. So and what's interesting is that the suggested cover-up that went on in Florida, because football is so important to them there, to the university, to the alumni, to the community, where cops even will protect a university. Before
star player,
the star player, it's just football is so important to so many people in so many schools and communities that these things are sort of swept away and not really addressed by the people who should do it. And it's really a hard hitting film, and the criticisms leveled against it, I think, are almost cosmetic because.
Unfortunately, those criticisms sort of knocked that movie out of the awards contention that it would have been in.
True.
Even by our group had those. I think so anyway.
I agree.
I got one over here. A neat one from Cohen Media Group.
Yeah.
A company that we love very much for a whole bunch of reasons. In the Courtyard. This is the Catherine Deneuve, Gustav Kern film. This is a neat little movie. I happen to have seen this one. It's funny. It's just so funny. It's about this guy. He, wannabe rock star for most of his life. One of those guys, not a failure exactly, but just never quite made it as a rock star. And eventually, just all builds up on him. He can't handle it anymore. He has to get a different occupation. He finds himself as the manager in this old Parisian apartment building full of a bunch of old Parisians, actually, including Catherine Deneuve. And he endears himself to these people in a particular sort of way. That joie de vivre that a rock star would have, and it's a really sweet and funny movie, bittersweet movie, and excellent output. Blu-ray from Coen Brothers has a few neat things on it, including an interview with the director, Pierre Salvadori. A comedy drama released last year. It needs to be In the Courtyard, Catherine Deneuve.
I actually met Salvadori very briefly when I moderated a panel discussion at Cocoa some years ago. He's just wonderful, absolutely charming, sweet, self-deprecating, completely humble.
Great
really,
timing.
Really talented.
Has he done anything that opened in English that opened here? I don't
No, all French films. He knows his skills. He's not gonna do that.
And that's okay with you.
Trio of docs from First Run Features. The new Rijksmuseum by Uke Hugendijk. I'm sorry if I've mutilated your name. This is in Dutch, English, French, and Spanish, and it is essentially about the renovation over 10 years ago of the great Amsterdam Museum, the Rijksmuseum, where Rembrandt and so many other great artists have their masterpieces hanging. And it's not about the art. It's about the renovation of the museum and what an unbelievable effort this was, and the challenges and how much it went over budget and over time and all of that. It's really pretty great. It's so fascinating. And yes, it is partly about the art, but it's about the importance of the museum as well, as a place to to patronize it and solicit it and display it. 1971. Is another First Run Features documentary that tells a story that you would a lot of us probably are not that familiar with. It's about an event that took place in March of 1971 when 8 people broke into the FBI office in Pennsylvania, just outside of Philadelphia, and stole a whole bunch of documents that they then released to the world to show what was going on, all these covert activities at the time, and what was going on with domestic spying. It's really a very disturbing story. And among the extras, they include a conversation with Edward Snowden, which is kind of a great get, to be honest. But it's
that brought to light information about COINTELPRO.
Yeah.
That was going on here. Infiltration of the Black Panthers, infiltration of us, infiltration of the Southern leadership, Dr. King's organization. Brought to light information about all of that.
Yeah, it was quite an event, and we've sort of forgotten about it. But I think the fact that they went and got Snowden forces us to go, more things change, more they stay the same.
And sometimes these people used to be called heroes. Not necessarily anymore.
Yeah.
I've got a new one here from Strand Releasing called Borrowed Identity. I happen to have seen this film too from Aaron Rickolas, wonderful.
The Israeli filmmaker.
The Israeli filmmaker, Lemon Tree and Syriana Bride, and so many.
Lemon Tree's so good. Syrian Bride too.
This is a pretty good one too. I like this film quite a lot. It's about a young Palestinian man who's very, very bright, teenager, an Israeli citizen. He's an Arab boy, is actually what he is. He's an Israeli citizen. There are lots of Arab Israeli citizens there, and because he is bright and is a citizen, he's able to go to a fairly posh Israeli school. Even though he's technically from the other side of the tracks. And it's about how he manages to negotiate that world, the difference between the cultures and the languages, and just being, an Arab boy who's in this very posh Israeli school and who's bright and deserves to be there, but doesn't always feel right there, given the things that are going on in Israel. This is a 2014 film, so a lot more has gone on in Israel since he made the film. But he's always trying to look at the bridge between that divide, sort of Palestinian-Israeli divide. That's what he's always trying to do.
Great filmmaker.
And at least he's making films that
Lemon Tree is such a fine film.
Oh, yeah.
So good. Well, from Israel to Cambodia, The Storm Makers, which is directed by Guillaume Suan, but it's produced by Ritipan, who is sort of the godfather of all Cambodian cinema. And it's only about an hour long, but it's about human trafficking in Cambodia. It is deeply depressing and very upsetting. And I have a relative who's going to be going to Cambodia very soon, so I'll be sure and let her know all about this to ruin her trip. No, this is basically about the how many poor Cambodians, and especially young Cambodian girls, are sold as sex slaves and prostitutes into surrounding countries. It is really, really upsetting and very powerful, and a lot of filmmaking packed into an hour. And it doesn't leave you feeling very good. It leaves you feeling angry, which is the whole point. So it makes you want to go out and change things.
Powerful stuff. I've got Code Unknown, a Michael Haneke film from around 2000.
Yeah.
It falls someplace in between the sort of films that we generally expect from Michael Haneke. It's not that extremely sort of white ribbon, sort of extremely uncomfortable, funny games sort of film. It's not one of those per se, but it is an uncomfortable film. Interesting now, even though this film is from 2000, because it's about immigration. A young man, he's a former guy, he goes off to Paris. He gets angry at his father. He goes off to Paris to hang out with his brother at his brother's home. And anyway, his brother's away covering the war in Kosovo at the time. And this frustrated young man has an interaction with a North African man, a beggar, and who's on the streets, and they have this interaction. The young North African man gets arrested, and the ramifications sort of work their way back through his relationship with his girlfriend and everything else, just because of the sort of arbitrary thing that he does. And it's a very, very, very bright and piercing film in that way. Michael Haneke. This is a restored 2K digital transfer that is specifically overseen by Michael Haneke. It's a very, very good movie, apropos to the day, that's for sure.
And then I've got an amazing doc here that was Oscar nominated last year, The Square, which is all about the January 2011 People's Movement in Cairo that essentially changed the entire landscape of the Middle East. I mean, we all sort of remember that the great democracy movement to at that time that to remove Mubarak, and of course things after that took a very ugly turn with the Muslim Brotherhood, and then
they get elected, and then they get overthrown, and then we are still in the midst of all of that turmoil.
We are still in that, but it is so the history is still being written, but this is the beginning of it, and this is a beautiful Blu-ray of an amazing film that got a very deserved Oscar nomination, and my hope is that he will go back. The filmmaker will, and I'm not even going to pronounce his name because I will completely destroy it. But I'm hoping he'll go back and make a sequel documentary to this that takes us from there to now, so that we can so that it becomes more of a piece and it becomes a more complete document. But in any case, lots of extras in here, superbly educational, really extraordinary, very hard hitting, really a fine film. Probably one of my favorite 2 or 3 favorite docs of that year.
Another great film from Cohen, Two Men in Town. This is this is
the original one.
The original one,
yeah,
with Gene Gabon and Jose Giovanni.
This was of course remade most recently with Forrest Whitaker, and very differently set in the United States. But this Alain Delon and Jean Gabin, really
great late performance from Jean Gabin.
Yeah, really a cool film. This is a 4K restoration. Feature-length commentary by Jean Gabin's biographer, Charles Zygmunt, and it's just everything that Cohen does. Despite the fact that Tim and I are biased, that we've done commentaries for Cohen, they really do just kill it with the transfers. They do a beautiful job of curating and just giving their movies the extra sheen on Blu-ray. It's really very nice. So the idea here basically is Alain Delon is a former safecracker. And Jean Gabin is a social worker who's sort of trying to help him get on the straight and narrow, and it goes into some very dark places. It's a fine film.
Fine film indeed. One that I don't really know, actually, a film called One-Eyed Girl. Looks like it's got some really great notices here. It's a film about a young woman who gets involved. Actually, it begins with this psychiatrist who's haunted by the death of a former patient, and he gets involved with these people, has a nervous breakdown, and stumbles across this sort of charismatic cult leader. It looks very interesting. This particular package, Blu-ray commentary with writer-director Nick Matthews and a few of the actors, and a featurette. Could be a nice little intense film. Won the jury prize at Dark Matters, which is a sort of specialty horror thriller sort of film festival, 2011. So that's called One-Eyed Girl. Looks pretty good to me. And then, if I may talk for one moment about one of my Mission Impossible Rogue Nation.
Oh, my goodness.
I love this movie.
I kind of do, too. Even though it's irrational and illogical and makes no sense, it goes into ridiculous detours.
It's a perfectly ludicrous movie, but I enjoyed the heck out of this movie. I had so much fun. One of the fun things about this movie is that our Ethan Hunt, Tom Cruise, is playing with his age a little bit in the movie, acknowledging that the clock is ticking.
Yeah.
He just about can't do any of the super spy stuff that he's supposed to do in this movie.
No.
He fails at every one of them.
Yeah.
And then the British actress, whose name I cannot remember at the moment, has to save him every single time. Every single time. It's a really, really neat movie. Well done. You know, what's smart is they're in on the jokes a little bit. It's not a campy movie in any way, shape, or form. Not campy. Drama, action, all of that. But they're a little bit inside. They're a little bit in on the joke, and they get it done.
This franchise has been around for a decade now, plus.
Yeah.
And so you sort of have to own that. It's not like James Bond, where we're reinventing it with a new actor about every decade or so. Now we're entering, Tom Cruise he's been doing this a long time, and we're copying to that. And there is that great subplot that they want to discontinue the team and put it under congressional oversight and all of this stuff. So
Alec Baldwin having a lot of fun. This has about 45 minutes. It says 45 minutes of high octane bonus content here. So you get all that stuff, including a featurette and a whole bunch of other good stuff. 2 DVD set, Blu-ray DVD set.
As much as I think we both enjoy that, I gotta say, Minions is an absolute catastrophe. This is a horrible, horrible film.
It never works when you try to take the sub-character
and give them their own movie.
Character. That doesn't work.
And they also lost the original filmmakers of the original Despicable Me films, who are on to other and bigger and better things. So now there's a whole new team that's trying to take the sub-character and make it their own and invent a sense of humor and a style that they weren't necessarily a part of, and it is just a horrible film. Basically, what this tries to suggest is that the Minions have been around forever, from the beginning of time, and they're always looking for a leader, and they sometimes choose the wrong leader. And anyway, this is sort of the prequel from hell, and it's their first adventure in many respects. I don't know, it's just not funny, and it bends over backwards to try to invent ways of being funny that
Sandra Bullock is working so hard.
They just don't work. None of it works. It's just really terrible. Anyway, it's a Blu-ray 3D, Blu-ray DVD, and ultraviolet combo set. It's got everything on it for people who just have to be completists and cannot imagine owning the 2 Despicable Me movies without this. But I gotta warn you, you're better off.
Yeah,
your kids are not going to like it. You're not going to like it. It's a real stinker.
Just pretend like it didn't happen. Oh. This is 90 Minutes in Heaven, which is a Blu-ray DVD release of a movie that came out a while. Michael Polish film. Hayden Christensen and Kate Bosworth. Michael Polish, I think, is married to Kate Bosworth, if I'm not mistaken. Great film from a couple of years ago called Twin Falls, Idaho.
Twin Falls, Idaho. The Polish brothers.
The Polish brothers. Outstanding stuff. This is supposed to be based on a true story about a young man who has a horrible car crash, claims to have gone to heaven during that period that he was dead, and then comes back from all of that sort of loosely based. It's kind of like one of those sort of Christian faith-based films that we talk about every couple of weeks or so here. It falls into the realm of that, which is a little bit interesting to me, given this particular cast. Hayden Christensen also interesting to be thinking about as we bear down on the release of a Star Wars film.
And got a couple of things here. Some Kind of Beautiful. Actually, I got a couple of documentaries, and then I'm going to talk about Some Kind of Beautiful right now before I get to those. Pierce Brosnan, I have to admit, even when he's not doing very good movies, I'm kind of enjoying how loose he is in the movies that he does. He's just kind of happy-go-lucky, and even if it's a bad movie, he smiles and he has fun doing it, and I can forgive that. I really can.
Pierce is an interesting guy. If you think about Pierce, I go all the way back to Remington Steele.
Yeah.
That's how far back.
Yeah.
Way back.
Yeah.
Talked about Pierce playing Bond way back then.
Yeah.
Remington Steele, the folks there wouldn't let him go. He couldn't play Bond. Timothy Dalton ended up taking that Bond spot. 2 movies, maybe, I think Timothy did. Maybe License to Kill and maybe something else.
Oh, yeah. It was License to Kill and the other one.
And the other one.
Yeah.
They talked about Pierce again. Right at that period. Finally, he works his way around to that Bond period.
Yeah.
Had suffered some really, really big tragedies in his life. Lost his wife during that period, and eventually lost his daughter. So I think you're right. By the time we get to the Pierce Brosnan that we have today, this is the guy that's been through it all. All of that pressure of being James Bond, not being James Bond, being touted to be James Bond, being James Bond, going through all of that.
We talked about that terrible Owen Wilson film last week.
No Escape.
No Escape. Yeah. And the best thing about that is Pierce Brosnan. Because he's got that Cockney accent, and he's got that, the scruff and the beard, and he's not even trying to be sexy. He's just trying to be an old, he's got those scenes where he's lascivious and he just wants to go and basically hang out with the hooker and smoke opium or whatever. And this is where he's at, and it actually benefits all of these films. Here he's essentially a college professor who's always been a bit of a dog, and he decides that he just wants to start a proper life and a family, and just wants to be a better person. And it is an interesting switch for him, and I gotta say it has a really, really decent cast. Jessica Alba and Salma Hayek are the supporting actresses who are certainly up to the task, and I just think it's a perfectly charming film. It's not a great film, but everybody sort of they go through the motions and they do a good job, and it seems like it was probably a fun film to make.
Sounds good to me. I have a little bit of the Marvel Universe over here, Ant-Man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Interesting what's going on.
Still haven't seen it.
It's actually a pretty good movie.
Yeah.
I did see this movie. Interesting what's going on in the Marvel Universe, given all that's going on in that universe. The films, the television programs, the things that are going on Netflix, Jessica Jones.
It's basically a heist film, right?
It's basically a heist film. He's Paul Rudd is our hero in this one. He's a guy who's been a bit of a he's probably been a bit of a black sheep in his family, has a young son, gets out of prison, wants to do right, can't quite seem to get it together, needs some money. There's a thing that he can do. If he does this thing, he'll have some money. He ends up with this Ant-Man suit, which is kind of a wacky thing. People enjoyed this movie because it's pretty good. A lot of great, really sophisticated perspective stuff that they do.
Yeah.
In order to get us down into the Ant-Man world and make the rest of that, they do that in this movie really well. Blu-ray DVD here with just all kinds of crap on it, more crap than I can even bonus features in every possible direction. Look, if you're a completist on that sort of Marvel Universe thing, you're going to want to have Ant-Man.
Yep. Here are my two documentaries. One, this is a PBS doc on two fronts: Latinos and Vietnam. This is amazing. We often talk about Vietnam, and Vietnam movies deal with this as well as a war that was, for all of its difficult ins and outs, it was a war that it was sort of the first war that actually had fully integrated service. But we always talk about it as, you always see like the black guys and the white guys in Vietnam together, and what that entailed. And even in movies like Good Morning Vietnam, right? It's the buddy thing with Forrest Whitaker and Robin Williams. Yeah. But they don't focus necessarily on the Latino aspect of Vietnam. And there were a lot of Latinos who served in Vietnam, and their experience was very unique. And it's not always. It certainly is every bit as difficult and ugly and awkward as anyone else's,
particularly from the Mexican and Puerto Rican communities.
Absolutely, and this gets into all of that, and it especially from a standpoint of citizenship. It really asks some very salient questions. The other really good doc here is GTFO, which is all about the ugly side of sexism and misogyny in the video game gamer world, which is pretty intense. You would think, well, why would girls want to be hanging out with nerds that don't want girlfriends or have them anyway? But there are a lot of girls who are gamers and they're nerds and so forth, and their experience in this world is horrible.
Yeah, well, it has to do with the nature of a lot of the games themselves, and then, frankly, a lot of these guys in the world, this gaming world, the way it works now, where a lot of the gaming actually happens online, as opposed to just at your console with your disc, you have this sort of interactive thing going on. Yet it's interactive with anonymity. So a lot of these youngish men, I think that they are, who maybe not, they are anonymous after all, get pretty sexist and outrageous, and things like death threats start to evolve out of this culture occasionally.
Horrible.
American Ultra. This movie, Jesse Eisenberg and Miss Stewart.
Is it worth seeing? Tell me.
Yes, this is an exceptional film. Very bright, very sharp. There's a thing going on here. We have a young man, and his girlfriend, and they live in an everyday small town and work at the Jiffy Mart or whatever the heck it is. And he's a loser, and she seems to have a little bit more on the ball, but she seems to be something like a loser because she's with him. And they just can't seem to get out of this town. There's something going on. And the thing that's going on is actually very bright and very interesting, and it allows for a sort of evolution of character, particularly with Jesse Eisenberg's character. Just imagine this: the biggest nerd that you've ever met, a real loser, who works his way around to being something like a Bondian superhero, a James Bond sort of superhero by the time you get to the end of the movie. But he gets there legit. What's going on gets him there. He just doesn't suddenly know how to use that M16.
It's great.
It's the reason for all that. Neat little movie. This one, again, packed with all kinds of special features, audio commentary, a couple of different featurettes, digital HD, UV, ultraviolet, watch it anywhere, iTunes, all of that, or you just get this Blu-ray DVD.
A couple of great releases here from the Criterion Collection. The first one is the Eclipse release. This is number 44 in the Eclipse series, Julien Duvivier in the 30s. Julien Duvivier, of course, is the great French director who is most famous for another Criterion release, Pepe Le Moko. And he was one of the 30s era filmmakers, along with Renoir and a few others, who sort of set the tone for the French New Wave. They were the exceptions to what was, the big deal.
All of the guys did those French
Cocteau,
New Wave guys.
Yeah, Cocteau.
Rivette would come to.
There was that thing, the cinema of quality, that the New Wave guys hated. But what they didn't hate were the handful who stood out, and these were some of those guys. And anyway, Duvivier made a lot of films that, of course, have never really kind of caught fire here, but they're worth checking out. And we got 4 of them on here: David Golder, Poil de Carotte, La Tête d'un Homme, and Un Carnet de Bal, all of them made in the 1930s, 30, 32, 33, 37. And this is a lovely, lovely box set. Really, really cool films. A very powerful filmmaker in every respect, visually, narratively, and yet all kind of different in many respects, very diverse. And then the other one is the long-awaited Criterion release to Blu-ray of the 1952 Akira Kurosawa classic Ikiru, which is kind of like Kurosawa's,
Ron and
well, this is sort of like what I was going to say is this is sort of like his Wild Strawberries. What Wild Strawberries is to Bergman, this is sort of to his career. A look at someone look at aging and life, and very reflective and all of that stuff. Anyway, really a not very typical film for Kurosawa, and really just a beautiful movie with a wonderful central performance. It includes a commentary originally recorded by Stephen Prince in 2003. The transfer is just spectacular, fantastic 4K black and white transfer. And then some interviews and a documentary produced by Kurosawa's company about Ikiru that was also made in 2003. A lot of it's just absolutely first-rate release, and it's been waited for. People have been waiting for this for a very long time. So finally, it's out.
In addition to also a part of that Criterion documentary collection, Bob Dylan's "Don't Look Back in Anger," Dave Pennebaker.
Yeah,
this is Pennebaker.
Yeah,
outstanding. Follows Dylan 1965. I think it was 65 tour. Of the UK.
Yeah, this is all that with the signs, the holding of the signs. That's from this.
That's from all of this.
That's been repeated. I mean, that's iconic. It's been repeated and over and over and over.
Joan Baez is in the performs in this thing. 96 is in black and white, 96 minutes long. Beautiful, beautiful transfer. A new 4K.
Yep.
Transfer, absolutely extraordinary. And all kinds of other little tidbits and things that come with this Blu-ray Criterion collection. Don't Look Back in Anger.
Let's talk about a little. I'm just going to make mention of some good trash real quickly, Tim. Mark and I often talk about the hallmark of Tinto Brass. Tinto Brass, who of course is most famous here for having done Caligula, but other than that, Tinto Brass made a lot of movies in Italy that really only have one defining characteristic. They all have women who walk around without pants.
Yeah,
that's it. And
in extremely arbitrary moments.
In arbitrary moments. This is called The Voyeur. Perfect title. This is from Cult Epics. This is the uncensored director's cut. And I got this Blu-ray, and I look at it, and I go, this looks like a Tinto Brass collection, but they don't really seem to be owning it because the cover has the beautiful woman, and then you kind of see in the shadows a woman who's unhitching a garter belt and a guy in bed, but they're sort of de-emphasizing it, and then you flip it around.
There it is.
There it is.
There it is.
There it is. You flip it around, and there she is. She's got her little maid top on, and she's flashing her tush right into the camera.
It's
and
all
smiling.
very Radley Metzger.
It's
very,
just
very,
yes,
yeah,
it is.
yeah.
Yes, it is. So Tinto Brass. The Voyeur is based on a novel that I guess has some kind of following, but anyway, it doesn't really matter what it's about. It's all that softcore titillation. And then from Blue Underground, we've got a couple of Jess Franco films. I know Tim has very strong opinions about Jess Franco. And these are 3-disc limited edition Blu-ray releases of the 2 Jess Franco films, Eugenie, the story of her journey into perversion. It's not just called Eugenie. The whole title is Eugenie ... the story of her journey into perversion. And then Marquis de Sade's Justine. Jess Franco, like Tinto Brass, wallowed in a certain kind of filmmaking, and it was very, very. It's softcore, and that's what it is. But he somehow carved out a field for himself. So these are 2 of his most famous and notorious films. They include, trailers and featurettes and some good interviews, a lot of interviews, actually, with Jess Franco.
They float around. All those Emmanuels. Remember all those Emmanuels?
Yeah.
They were all right around that.
So Eugenie, the story of her journey into perversion. It leaves absolutely there's no mystery there. It's just no mystery.
It's a journey into perversion, of course it is. This was a wonderful film, Wade, that you and I had a chance to talk about on Film Week.
So good.
Back when it came out. Seymour, an introduction, a film by Ethan Hawke, who Ethan Hawke actually, it's a documentary.
About an extraordinary pianist, legendary pianist, but who has become more of a great teacher.
Almost a great philosopher, even.
Yeah.
But he is a teacher. Seymour had a burgeoning career when he was a very young man, right around World War II.
Yeah.
Actually spent a little time. He was a prisoner of war.
Yep.
And he talks about that.
Seymour Bernstein.
Seymour Bernstein is his name,
Yeah.
the great pianist who was known. Had a very interesting life after that period. Became the protege of a woman who was much older than him, and he lived with her for a while. And then he simply broke with music.
Yeah.
Whole and complete. Fast forward 60 years. He done all sorts of things as he lived his life, and actually grown quite significantly spiritually. And like you said, as a teacher and a philosopher. And Ethan Hawke runs into him at a dinner party and finds out who he is and does a little bit of research and realizes...
And becomes enamored of him.
This is just an extraordinary man who decides to return to the piano at this late moment in his life.
What's wonderful is that this is not about learning how to appreciate music. It's learning about how to appreciate life through music.
Yeah.
And, this is something that all great teachers and coaches and all these people, the thing that people always would say about John Wooden was not a great basketball coach.
Yeah.
John Wooden was a great life coach who made you understand how to play basketball better because you understood how to live life better. It's all part and parcel of that. And it's the only way you can really be happy. And when you look at his life, he separated himself from music because he didn't know how to be happy.
Yeah.
And when he figured out how to be happy, he was able to go back to music. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful film, and bravo to Ethan Hawke for bringing it out.
Very, very, very bright stuff. Ethan Hawke can sometimes get on my nerves just a little bit.
Seymour, an Introduction, it is called.
Seymour Bernstein. A Lego brickumentary. I happened to see this film back when it was out before. This is the Blu-ray. This is actually very interesting to me.
It's fascinating. The whole history of the Lego company.
The whole history of that company and how it works, and it has worked this way. I certainly did not know that there was this tradition of people making cinema, everything from commercials and whole feature films out of Lego, stop motion animation.
Yeah.
Batman, the entire, just frame for frame out of Legos.
Going back in the Super 8 era, people have made Lego movies forever.
Yeah, very interesting stuff. So Lego, a brickumentary, kind of a neat little film. This is a Blu-ray. I have some deleted scenes on it and a few other things, not a whole lot, but the documentary itself is a lot of fun. Lego, a brickumentary.
A few foreign Blu-rays here. One is the Kino release of F.W. Murnau's Faust. a rather extraordinary achievement, just by any standard. It's Murnau in full, German expressionism form, just really unleashing everything. And it's it's not as iconic as something like Nosferatu, but it certainly is. I think every bit as good, and it's right up there with the best of German expressionism. This is from 1930, so it is. Right there on the cusp of silent and sound. But my, what a really it includes a great score from a great orchestral score by Javier Perez de Azpeitia.
Good work, sir.
It works, doesn't
it? Or Gesundheit, okay. One or the other. Whatever.
Anyway, that was it's adapted from the original 1926 score. Really just an amazing film, and it's so Faust is such a scary story. Anyway. And then, as long as we're on scary, Goodnight Mommy is a film that is so good, I hated every single second of it. I really did. I just hate.
We talked about Michael Haneke just a few minutes ago.
Yeah, this is definitely in the Haneke vein. I don't know what's going on in Austria, but they are a sick and disturbed people, and they need to really work out their issues.
Well, they did give us
this is written and directed by Veronica Franz and Severin Fiala. Now, Veronica Franz is married to Uli Seidel, otherwise known as Ulrich Seidel, who makes some pretty sick and twisted movies on his own.
He's made some lovely movies, too. The Dog Days and those Lost movies, Paradise Lost, Love Lost.
But he's made some weird stuff.
He's made some wacky stuff.
Anyway, and he produced this. And here's basically what's going on here. It's about a couple of brothers who don't believe that their mom, after plastic surgery, is really their mom. They think their mom is an imposter. So they proceed to devise a diabolical series of torture tests to get her to confess to being an imposter and to tell them what she really did with their real mom. Yeah. And of course, she is their mom. And there are some sort of insane twists in this, and it is in no way pleasant to watch at any point. What it is, however, is extremely well made. So I almost don't know what to tell you about this. It is like a Michael Haneke film, like a Funny Games or whatever. It is pure sadism. It is audience torture. It is art porn. Yeah. But it's really well done. So I sat there sort of thinking, I'm so impressed by this filmmaking, and I want to punch everyone who decided that this was a story that I needed to watch.
Psychologically interesting a little bit. I got this entire The Hobbit, the motion picture trilogy box set over here.
Yeah.
Look, I'm not a big Lord of the Rings Hobbit.
I like Mark always makes fun of me. I like the Hobbit films better than the Lord of the Rings.
Well, the Hobbit films are better than the Lord of the Rings films. Yeah. That's true. But I was never a particularly big fan of these things. Anyway, the box set is here, digital HD with ultra violet, so you can watch it pretty much anywhere on all your devices. All three movies. Special features do not include a lot, but you do get filmmaker commentaries on each one of the films, but and a bit more. But so if you are a completist or just somebody who for some bizarre reason doesn't have this yet, this can't possibly be the first time this is out. Wade, right?
It's the first time they're out in a complete box.
In a single box.
In a single volume,
okay. Yeah. So if you haven't collected them individually yet, you can get them in a box. The box itself, decent looking box, but nothing particularly fantastic. I don't know. I would simply have expected more.
Yeah.
Because it's The Hobbit.
Yeah.
Some fancy can with you open it up and maybe
I'm
sure orc would pop out or something.
I predict that we are going to have a complete Lord of the Rings and Hobbit extended edition of every single one of them set that will come in some giant replica of Middle Earth, and it'll be the size. it'll be the size of a Subaru, and
with a little Martin Donovan.
Yeah,
whatever.
Yeah.
I got Ted 2 over here too. Saw Ted, loved Ted. Did not see Ted 2, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Ted 2 unrated, by the way, is exactly what this says.
But we want to let you know it's out there and available, and it didn't get really great reviews.
No, look, this is the Blu-ray. It has a gag reel on it. It has some other stuff on it. I don't know. Ted was a very funny movie that I enjoyed quite a lot. I only need one of those. I don't need two.
We don't need the bear again.
Mark Wahlberg talking to a teddy bear.
No. A couple of foreign films I should probably knock out here at the very end. There's an interesting essay film here called Interface, which is by Harun Faraki. And when I say essay film, it's not a documentary, it's not a narrative film. It's a meditation, And the most famous one I can probably think of is I don't know. I mean,
Are there any some Wong Kar-wai films or something meditative like that?
I guess. Well, yeah, I'm trying to think of something that's sort of more. I was gonna start to name some what are actually documentaries. So I was off base, but they're really sort of. There are very few analogies to this. It is. Essentially, if you don't know who Harun Faraki is, Harun Faraki is he's a filmmaker, but he's also very much a theoretician in the sort of Eisenstein vein. And he uses a lot of clips from his own previous work to essentially sort of teach you about editing. But it's not really a lesson, it's a meditation. It is... It's a very unusual way of making a film and communicating what he's communicating. Anyway, it's really worth checking out because it's not just about what the editor does and how he does it and why it's important, but it's very much about the philosophy and the psychology of editing. And it puts you into an interesting frame of mind, and it's really one of the most interesting and unusual movies about the craft that I've ever seen. So I really, really recommend it. Also recommended is Tsai Ming Liang's Rebels of the Neon God. The Tsai Ming Liang, one of the great sort of modern Taiwanese filmmakers. And this is his first film, which is a great look at just the recklessness and the disenfranchised nature of Taiwanese youth in the 1990s. This was made in 1992.
Yeah,
and it's very compelling. It is a very neo-realistic look at just we tend to think of a lot of Asian cities as having really vibrant societies, but they have their sort of disenfranchised and disenchanted youth just like anybody else, and that's what this is about.
One of my early interviews was with him for that film back in '92. When I first got here. Yeah,
wow.
Junket for that. I got a couple of neat little documentaries over here. One is just simply called Steak Revolution.
Yes,
and this is about.
Made me want to give up meat all over again.
No, dude, this is good. They go out there looking for the great steak. You've never seen so much steak in your life. It is an interesting thing though, because they go into the whole breeding thing, the nature of all of these different kinds of steers and the kind of meat that these steers produce and all that kind of stuff. That's there. And then I have a neat one that I happen to have actually seen called Art of the Heist. This is about the greatest art thefts across history, some of which have never been solved. Which is really, and they go through the whole thing of how they got into the, I mean, it's like the Thomas Crown Affair kind of thing, one of those kind of things like that. Greatest art thefts in history, some of which were solved, some of which were only solved because the thieves, years later, decided to say, you know what, I got that thing down in the basement. We never knew what to do with it.
We never sold it, couldn't find a buyer.
Sell it. Everybody seems to know about it. You can have it back. I'm going to die soon anyway. So it's neat Art of the Heist, inside the world's greatest art thefts from Athena.
And then we're going to wrap things out with a couple here to. I'm not trying to depress your Christmas holiday. I'm just saying that we have two documentaries that sort of speak to what's going on right now in the world, and this is a current events that's in the news from MVD. We have Meeting ISIS and PBS Escaping ISIS. And, this is, if you're a fan of the old ISIS Shazam hour, this is not that ISIS.
I was so in love with her when I was 12.
I was too. Yeah. No, this is ISIS, otherwise known as ISIL, otherwise known as Daesh.
Daesh, which is what I prefer to call them. I wished it
because it's a pun, right? It's like a pun in Arabic that they don't like.
In Arabic that they don't like at all. And, but it actually has other meanings too that are relevant. But here in the United States, for whatever reason, we decided to go with ISIS.
Both of these are required viewing if you want to if you want to really kind of get a very sobering view of what's going on in Iraq right now under the governance of this rogue fanatical group, and the difference between them is really sort of cosmetic. Meeting ISIS is very kind of raw. And goes much more into their ideology and includes some really shocking footage that will make your stomach turn. Escaping ISIS is a lot more polished, but also a lot more journalistic. This is a Frontline documentary from PBS, so it gets the Edward Watts from Frontline really kind of gives it the usual Frontline sheen, and they just pour their resources into this thing. And
one of the things that the first one does is that it lays out the development of where ISIS comes. ISIS, and most people don't know this. I don't want to go off onto too deep of a historical thing. You watch the movies, please. But Sunni Baathists,
yes,
who used to work for Saddam Hussein, these people were generals and colonels and all kinds of people, and that if you look at the top of ISIS, that's who you will find. It will not be these mullahs with beards like in Iran. These people are completely different set of people. So ISIS is not spawned from the sort of thing that we think of Osama bin Laden having been spawned for, this sort of religious.
It has al-Baghdadi at the top, but beneath him, orchestrating the actual, al-Baghdadi is not a politician. Yeah. Those old Saddamites are the politicians.
The old politicians and generals and colonels and all of these kind of people. It's a very, very interesting thing, which I think that if people understood that better, we'd have a much better grip on what's going on. Of course, we're only a week past the events in San Bernardino, which is not very far from us here in Los Angeles. So it's very relevant material.
It is, and will continue to be relevant for quite a while. And it gets into the Yazidis and all the other minority groups that have been victims of this. So it is. It is an ugly part of the present news, but two very good documentaries to discuss it. And with that high point.
A week before Christmas?
A week before Christmas, to give you something to be thankful for, that those of you who are listening to this, we presume that you live in safe places. And we leave you our very, very best greetings for the season, regardless of what holidays you celebrate. Very Merry Christmas. Hanukkah is past, so we continue to wish you a happy Hanukkah. Happy New Year. We'll be back in the new year. Mark will be back. And Tim, thank you for being with us these last 2 weeks.
I loved it. Fantastic.
And
nice to talk to all of you.
Send us your new intros, your emails, your Vox boxes. Send them all to us at gods@digigods.com. We hope to have the CineGods site up and running very soon. We've all been distracted, obviously, by LAFCA voting and other things in the holidays, but we can pour our energies into that and get that going very soon. And we will see all of you in 2016.
This is my New Year's resolution. When my mother-in-law begins to yell and shout, through the window I would like to throw her out. But I resolve not to do it. Here is why. I'm afraid of hitting someone passing by. This is my New Year's resolution. When I'm at the movies watching a love scene, and the lady's hat is blocking half the screen, I resolve not to shout, take off that hat. I'll remove it gently with a baseball bat. This is my New Year's resolution. When I take a lovely lady out to eat, and she orders caviar instead of meat, I resolve to let the lady have her fill. And of course I'll also let her pay the bill. This is my New Year's resolution.
Come on, Sir Frederick Gas. How about Sir Frederick Gas? Come on, boy. When I'm sitting with my wifey on a bus, and a dear old lady stands in front of us, I resolve to be a gentleman discreet. I'll politely offer her my wifey's seat. This is my New Year's resolution. Hey, Judge Rock, how about your New Year's resolution?
When my mother says, come in, it's time to eat, and I keep on playing games out in the street, I resolve to rush right home now when I'm cold, 'cause my pop just bought a hairbrush and he's bald. This is my New Year's resolution. Hey, Doodles Weaver, how about Professor Fiddlebob?
On the radio this year I hope to score with some funny jokes you've never heard before. I resolve not to tell a corny joke. Hello, what's that? The church burned down. Holy smoke. This is my year's road revelation. Spike, how about Spike? In this coming year, I'm gonna be discreet. Have the slickers playing music soft and sweet. I resolve to treat Tchaikovsky tenderly and set his second movement off with TNT.
We hope this coming year to bring you life.
Christmas, baby. Should he treat me nice? Merry Christmas, baby. Should he treat me nice? You bought me a diamond ring for Christmas. I feel like I'm in paradise. I feel mighty fine, y'all. I got music on my radio. Feel mighty fine, girl. I got music on my radio. Oh, oh, oh. I feel like I wanna kiss you standing beneath that mistletoe. Santa came down the chimney, 3:30, y'all. Left all them a good old present for my baby and for me. Ha ha ha. Merry Christmas, baby.